Welcome to the Be Your Own Answer podcast, empowering good people like you to amplify your voice, your message, your movement. We believe that when 10,000 uncommon leaders step into high-level platforms, we will transform and heal communities across the planet. It's time to be your own answer. And now your host, Narissa Street.
Today, we are so excited to bring you part 2 of our interview with Michelle Hollinger. She is the founder of the Institute for Worthy Living, and we really dig in deep to how it is that smart women are subtly being driven by a sense of unworthiness. So listen in to hear some surprising tips from Miss Michelle Hollinger.
I could definitely see that happening. For sure.
I'm just saying, it in my mind, I almost said Dr. Michelle. I said, ooh, let me make sure to say this to her so she knows that it's obviously coming. It's on its way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A PhD in sociology or somewhere in that neighborhood.
Nice.
For sure. Yeah,
Right,
because the work that I'm being led to do is, it's phenomenal.
It's dope, right?
Oh yeah. The Institute for Worthy Living is going in a direction that I did not predict.
Yes.
But it is what my pastor calls my love niche. And we don't choose our love niche. Our love niche chooses us. And it's up to us to wake up to it, embrace it, and follow directions. So,
who's this pastor? Love niche. I love that. I love that. I love the putting those things together because I talk to my students all the time about their niche. Who's this pastor? Because I want to quote, I always like to give attribution. I want to quote love niche to my students in the class and blow their mind. Who's this?
Oh yeah, that's Pastor Yolanda Batts. We affectionately call her PY. And she's the co-pastor of Celebration Spiritual Center in Brooklyn.
Okay, Pastor Yolanda Batts. I'd like to attribute. So yes, love niche. I talk to them about their niche all the time, and I want to add in love niche so that they can really get it. And I love that I have that type of class that I can, I set it up really well the first couple of weeks of class so that and I make sure that the students understand how deep we're going to go. And the ones who can hang, and then we get to go deep. So
what's the age group? What's the age range?
These are teens.
That's powerful.
Yeah, that is the class that I missed the most from the pandemic because this is my public speaking class. So we go, I just drop them off a cliff. And I'll tell you, I had 14-year-olds to 18-year-olds, right? So the maturity level is huge.
Right.
And I always try to hit the 18-year-olds and the 14-year-olds that come along because they don't want to be seen as immature.
Right.
So, it's just, we always like to take them up a couple levels. And that's the class that when pandemic hit, they told me too, they talked back to me too. They're like, Ms. Street, we can't be in the class. They miss each other because they took care of each other and they asked that, and this was a 7:00 class. This was a 7:40 a.m. class, and I did not play. Do not walk in my door 7:41. And they oh gosh, that's the class that I missed the most.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So it goes. They're resilient.
Yeah.
They'll be all right. So
for sure.
So we're here for part 2. With the CWO.
CWO.
The CWO of the Institute for Worthy Living. You're going to make sure I get that right And I'm claiming it for her, Dr. Michelle Hollinger. How you
Hmm.
doing?
I'm doing fantastic.
Yes,
Fantastic. I
yes.
love that you're speaking that into
I'm just
existence.
saying. Okay,
Oh yeah.
let me tell you something. It hit my head first, and I was like, oh.
Hmm.
So and I'll just let you know, everybody that I have spoken that for,
Really? Okay.
everyone, everyone I've spoken that for,
Wow.
even the ones who started out the program and then like backed off because it wasn't the
Hmm.
right program for them. They
Hmm.
went on back and found it again, and so everyone. So
Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm.
Dr.
That's
Hollinger,
powerful.
Dr.
I
Hollinger,
can definitely see that happening. I feel it. It's something I've definitely considered
awesome, awesome.
for sure.
So let's continue this conversation. So we were, and you know, I love that it's a part two because I feel like the audience will have gotten some real nice meatiness from part one.
Hmm.
But I want us to really circle back to what we started with before, which was, and let's catch people up who may hear this episode before they hear the other one.
Okay.
Define for the audience worthiness.
Worthiness is a state of being. We're all born worthy. We're all born innately worthy. And so it's a state of being. It's a consciousness that's within us, but it's something that we have to consciously embrace and be aware of so that we can live from it. It's there. It's a knowing that you are. It's an unequivocal knowing that you are deserving of every wonderful thing that life has to offer. Unequivocally, it's a knowing, and it can be smothered by some other things, but it can't go away. It can't be destroyed. Can't be annihilated. You're always worthy, whether you're aware of it or not, is the question.
So we want to I want to make sure we hear that because the thing that you cannot destroy it, right? There's so many things that in the process of living our lives, right? We may do things that are outside of integrity of our, with ourselves and who we really are, right? And in that, there may be a sense of shame. There might be a sense of guilt, right? Ooh, I like to clap too. There we go.
That was
That
a
was,
bug.
yes, that's right. Shame, guilt. We're going to clap them both.
That was right on time.
We're going to clap them both. Right. So, whichever bug that was, shame or guilt, is gone now. Right. So,
Yeah.
so with that, you know, if there's something that we have, some regret, some shame, some guilt, it can kind of cloud you, you know, kind of they talk about a veil. It can put a veil over you and make you feel as if because of this thing that I did or this mistake that I made, it's too late for me. Like I can't get the thing that I actually want or the thing that's in my heart. Talk about how you work with somebody who's in that space.
Mhm. Well, you know what? You described it so beautifully because that's what happens when someone is living from unworthiness. When someone is convinced that they are unworthy, and that's the way they're showing up in their lives, right? So, going back to this sense of being innately worthy, and there's this space in us that is there. It's life affirming. It's pulsating with this juicy, awesome goodness, right? And it's waiting for us to reconnect to it. And so when I speak at workshops and book signings and whatnot, that the first thing I have to help people to understand is how unworthiness shows up in their lives. Because most folk think that you got to be down and out, you got to be dealing with some chronic dysfunction, maybe a serious addiction, just something major, right? But the danger of unworthiness is how subtle it is. And it shows up in our lives in ways that we do not even recognize, right? And so we're not walking around articulating that, oh, I'm dealing with unworthiness. We're not, because we don't even realize that we are. And so someone who's still beating themselves up because, of a mistake they made or some perceived failure, and I put failure in air quotes because it's the label we give it. Someone who's walking around with that messaging to themselves, I would first remind them, listen, the truth of who you are is that you're worthy, right? And so this thing doesn't define you. This thing that you are allowing, you're allowing it to convince you that you're unworthy. No. That thing is not real. That thing is not real. And you have the power. You have, the ability to give yourself permission to define that thing as temporary, to perhaps define it as a placeholder while you did some internal work to remind yourself of who you really are. And understand that, that again, that innate worthiness is there. It's something that you get back to, but there's some layers that you may have to peel back. There's some layers that you may have to peel back. And you do that by paying attention to these thoughts that you think, understanding what a game changer forgiveness is, and taking a different kind of look at gratitude.
So, okay. So we're gonna put a pin in all three of those things. So look at the thoughts, understand what forgiveness is and what a tool it is, and use gratitude as a practice. So we're going to start back with the layers. So you said it a couple of times about peeling away the layers, right? So women who are smart, and my target audience is smart women, right? And I say that with no apology whatsoever, because most of the people that I work with have been doing some work, some personal development work, whether they've taken some financial education classes, whether they've done some sort of professional development around their career, also personal spiritual development. Like, the women in my audience are women who care about progress and growth, right? And what sometimes happens around that is we think we got it. Like I'm very self-aware about, some of the things that I'm bad at, or I'm aware of some of the things that, I just can't do. So talk about, and you said it's subtle. Talk about how this intellectual approach to this development can sometimes hide the feeling of unworthiness, because we know you're not actually unworthy. Let's talk about that.
Beautiful question. Yes, you know what, and that speaks to just how subtle the unworthiness is, because when I came face to face with it a few years ago, I was flabbergasted that I could be dealing with unworthiness. I'm college educated. I'm one of the smart women that you know. I am brilliant. I am creative. I've been on this spiritual journey for a really, really long time. And the idea that I could be dealing with unworthiness was the furthest thing from my mind, the absolute furthest thing from my mind. But one of the major ways that it kept showing up in my life was with my tendency to undercharge for products and services that I know God gave me. They were brilliant ideas. They were brilliant products, but I had this tendency to place a paltry price on them, right? And the work that I had to do to come face to face with the fact that I was dealing with unworthiness, it wasn't intellectual work. I couldn't read my way through it. I couldn't, look at a webinar or attend to get an intellectual understanding of what was going on with me. I had to strip it down to the spiritual nitty gritty and go within and ask. It's a really powerful spiritual practice. It's a really powerful spiritual process to come face to face with your worthiness. And I had to start asking questions of the universe, of God, of source. What's up with me and these tiny prices? What's up with me, placing these small prices on these, phenomenal products and services? And There were some other questions that went along with that, with the people pleasing, with being preoccupied with what other people might think if I take a step in this direction. The fear, the procrastination, the self-sabotage. A lot of those things start to kind of bubble up to the surface. And I had to go within, and it was a very spiritual process to go within, and Spirit revealed to me, number one, you're dealing with unworthiness. And more importantly, I need to remind you that you're worthy. You're worthy. Don't forget that. You're worthy. Tears, snot, serious, like majorly emotional process. But the only way really to engage your worth and to step into that space where your worth consciousness exists is to put down the intellect. Is to put down all the external stuff that we think that we can use to fix us, and surrender in a way like that you've never surrendered before.
Hey, this is a great episode, right? Want to carry the insights from our show with you wherever you go? Visit myjoyisvaluable.com for the best resources we've gathered that are inspired by our expert guests. Find support for your business, tools to organize your life, and more. That's myjoyisvaluable.com.
Right. And surrender is outside of the intellect and outside of logic. Everything in the world tells us that it's not safe to surrender, which I think is why we have developed as women, and particularly as smart women, we develop and we start to lean hard on our intellect when we have been gifted with this powerful emotional intelligence, this powerful spiritual intuition, because, when we're out in the world and you see all the things that happen and things have happened to you, you really do start to okay, well, I got to figure it out, right? And so then the mistake, as you're talking about, that it starts to make you think, okay, well, no, I can't rely on the things that I don't see. When it's the things that you don't see that are really, really driving things, and we make these judgments. So we talked about the first layer, which is those thoughts and those things. Let's go to that second layer again. Forgiveness. Let's really, really dig in. How do you define forgiveness?
Before I say that, let me just say just a tiny bit about surrendering,
please,
because I think that one of the reasons that people are reluctant to surrender is because they don't really understand what it means to surrender.
Yes.
Because folk think that surrendering means giving up, And there's a dynamic of giving up, but what you're giving up is control of how your life is unfolding, and you're surrendering to divinity. You're surrendering to, to God, to source, to the universe. And when that happens, there's some things that flow through you that you could never have conjured up. There's some brilliance, there's some creativity, there's some courage, there's some just fantastic qualities and energy that flow through you, that source is always pouring through us. But if we're not in alignment with it, we can block it. As a writer, when I surrender before I write anything, frequently I go back and I do not remember what I wrote. I don't remember that I wrote that because I was not a part of the process. I was the vessel. I was certainly the vessel, but the complete surrender, we set ourselves up to just do some things that from a human dynamic, we just would not be able to do on our own. The small s self. When we surrender to the capital S self, we position ourselves to do some fantastic things. So the forgiveness thing.
Yes.
Did you want to say something about?
I'll get back to it, but I wanted to for just a second. When you said about as a writer, right? That allows you to to have some things brought through you that you don't remember. It came to me that this is part of the reason people have an issue with writer's block, because it's them showing up to the page and not their surrendered self. So
Absolutely.
go ahead,
Absolutely.
please continue, talk about forgiveness.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Just briefly, there's a difference between writer's block and writers who are blocked.
Ooh,
So we could talk about that.
part
Talk
three.
about that.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead, forgiveness. Go ahead.
Okay, so forgiveness. Forgiveness to me is letting go the willingness to be held hostage to something that you have absolutely positively no control over, something that happened in your past, and you're still allowing yourself to be held hostage to it. And you're unaware of just how much of your energy is devoted to keeping that thing alive. It's only alive in your mind because it's already, over and done. And forgiveness allows you to set yourself free. Forgiveness, especially, as it relates to you being able to move forward and to deal with things like procrastination and self-sabotage, forgiveness is a key element to dissolving procrastination and self-sabotage. Because what typically happens is if we've done this thing in the past and, it didn't turn out the way we wanted it to, for example, we were going to start a small business and for whatever reason, it didn't happen. If we have not resolved our relationship with that thing from the past, it's going to have that little voice that every single time we attempt to start to try something that is remotely similar to what we tried in the past that we didn't work, that we didn't succeed at, it's going to tap us on the shoulder. Hello, Missy, who do you think you are? Don't you remember the last time this happened? You weren't able to make it go back then. So what makes you think you're going to make it go now?
That's right.
Right. So what forgiveness does, and I coined a phrase called compassionate retrospection as relates to forgiveness, self-forgiveness.
Say that slower so everybody, when they talk about it to their friends, they can say it right and attribute you right.
Compassionate retrospection.
Ooh, I like that. Go ahead.
Compassionate retrospection.
Yes.
So we're looking back at a past event that is still keeping us stuck, but we're looking at it from an entirely different lens.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at it, as though we're an archaeologist in our own lives. Let's figure out what happened there, but not from a position of beating myself up, and raking myself over the coal the way that I have been doing in a way that continues to keep me stuck, right? So when I look back at it with compassionate retrospection, the first thing I'm going to do is to look at what was going on in my life at the time. Because a lot of times, just the human dynamic is that the gifts and talents that are inside of us, their job is to express themselves through us. They don't give a damn what's going on in our external life. They just want to be expressed, right? But if we are not aware of, kind of testing the barometer of what's going on in our external life at the time, it really might not be the opportune time. So if we look back on it, and in my case, I look back on a particular situation where I attempted to start a small business, and I thought about it. I'm like, okay, so I was a wife, I was a mother of small children, I was working full time in the home and out of the home because we start part 2 when we get home. I had a lot going on. Right. And so what I say to people is to look at what was going on in your life, right? Look at if there had been any major events in your family and in your life. Had there been a divorce? Had there been, a death in the family, a major illness? What were the dynamics of the family and the family situation? What was going on in your life at the time, right? And so when you're able to look back at that experience with compassionate retrospection, right? And you examine what was going on in your life. In my case, I was like, girl, let me give you a hug. Because I can't even believe you started that back then because you had so much on your plate at the time. It's no wonder that thing you couldn't make a go of that. Right. And then I encourage people to look at, okay, so look at who you are now. Look at who you were then. The person who you are now is more courageous. She has more strength, more wisdom. She's lived a little. She has some tools in her toolkit. Okay. When we know better, we do better, right? If it was meant to happen back then, guess what? It would have happened. It would have happened. It wasn't meant to happen back then, right? So now you can look at it, you can cut yourself some slack. You can congratulate yourself for even trying, because you get some points for trying, but you understand why that thing didn't happen. And now you can heal that energy around it and recognize that, you know what? Okay, so the other thing I can also do is now I can look at this thing objectively, because there's some things I probably learned from that experience. I can look at what went well. I can look at what didn't go well. I can look at it objectively, take the emotion out of it. I can take the hammer, put the hammer down. I'm not beating myself up about it anymore, right? And so now I can look at it and learn from it, and I can take some tools in this now moment to move forward. So that compassionate retrospection has set me up to forgive myself for whatever I was holding myself accountable for that past experience. I also encourage people to use this scaling activity, to on a scale of 1 to 10. 1, you had no business whatsoever, based on what was going on in your life, how you were feeling, who you were at the time. You had no business whatsoever even trying that. 10, everything was lined up. You were confident. You had the resources, the support system. Everything was a go. Where were you on a scale of 1 to 10? Right? And when you look at it from that perspective, and you're like, I was really a 2.
Yeah.
You can even laugh at yourself, and just see it with that kind of levity, right? And then in the current moment, you use that same scaling technique to look at where you are before you move forward with anything, right? So again, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1, I have no business whatsoever right now even trying anything new, because of all these things I have going on, the way I'm feeling, my level of motivation, whatever the case may be. 10, oh my God, everything is lined up. It's good. I'm ready to go. Where are you on a scale of 1 to 10? And I say, if you're at a 7 or higher, go, move. You don't have to be at a 10, but if you're at a 7, the wind is at your back, go ahead and move. What you need is going to fall into place. You've done some work. You understand, you understand what you're working with. You're using your tools. 7 or higher, go ahead, do the damn thing. If you're at anything less than that, if you're at a 1, 2, or 3, don't even think about doing anything right now. I want you to shift your focus to yourself. You need some self-care in that moment. Don't think about pursuing a goal right now. Your goal right now is to
self-care.
Get you good, right? If you're at a 4, a 5, or a 6, that's not permission to abandon the dream or the goal. That's just permission to do some work. So, and the work is not to jump from a 4 to a 10. The work is, how do I get from a 4 to a 5? What can I do in the next 2 weeks that can move me from, and you have to give yourself specific time frames, because otherwise you'll just be working on it, forever. So you give yourself a specific time frame. What can I do in the next 2 weeks? And it could be something as simple as making that phone call, sending that email, reaching out to somebody who has an answer, getting somebody to help you with the kids, whatever they can. And we all know what it is that we need, and spirit will help us to discover what it is that we need. So incremental progress is still progress, and it's the most effective kind of progress, because it's happening as a result of you doing work that is meaningful to your own journey. Forgiveness, oh my God, forgiveness is like turbo boost.
That's beautiful.
Want to hear more fantastic shows like this one? Visit blackwomenpodcasting.com, the only podcast directory and platform exclusively featuring the voices of Black women across the globe. Listen to experts in business, relationships, spirituality, culture, and more. blackwomenpodcasting.com.
What I really like about your process in forgiveness is because every time I hear about forgiveness, I hear about it as kind of like a very, intellectual process of, understanding where people are and, things like that. But just looking at yourself and using the tools that you're talking about, the compassionate retrospection, the scaling, the really stepping out of your own life and looking back at your life and saying, well, hey, if anybody else had tried that, and they succeeded. Well, wow, they must be a superhero. So I think that not just the definition of the forgiveness that you're talking about, but also the practice that you're giving people is excellent. And then now, so you're moving from you surrendered, and so you're giving back your life to the life giver, right? And the fact that God allows us to run ourselves all over the place really is a space of unconditional love, because so many ways that we could be pulled back and we're not, or we are, but just in the way that makes the most sense for us. Then moving into the forgiveness, and then now the practice of gratitude. So talk a little bit more about what you mean by gratitude.
Gratitude, in my opinion, is a way of life. And when you understand what a game changer it is, it's a game changer, big time game changer. We know that, according to researchers, that we think 60,000 thoughts on average a day.
Right.
90% of those bad boys are repetitive, 80% are negative, right? And the thing that is that allows 80% of them to be negative is that we are not aware oftentimes of what we're thinking. These thoughts are just kind of running through our minds unsupervised. I think I need some lighting in here. Just running through our minds unsupervised. Gratitude is a very intentional process, a very intentional practice that shifts the kinds of thoughts that you're thinking. So instead of thinking about what has gone wrong or what is going wrong in your life, you're thinking about what has gone correctly, what has gone well. You're thinking about the goodness in your life. Instead of focusing in on what you don't have, you're focusing in on what you do have. Because we know that thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. And if I'm constantly focused on the negative, I'm constantly focused on, what I don't have. If I'm constantly focused on what's not going well, I'm attracting more of those kinds of experiences into my life. So gratitude, and one of the things I talk about in my book, is intentionalizing your thinking. Gratitude helps you to become intentional with your thinking, because now you're aware of what you're thinking about on a daily basis, and you're focused on capturing the blessings, capturing the wonderful things that happen in our lives anyway, right? But if they just pass by and we don't, kind of grab onto them and do something with them, we don't position ourselves to benefit from those wonderful things that are happening in our lives, because we're focused on the negative stuff. We're focused on what we don't have. And so gratitude helps you to shift the way that you're looking at everything. If I'm driving down the street, and I'm operating from a position of gratitude, that dude who cuts me off, instead of me giving him the finger, I might say a quick prayer, understanding that, this dude might be rushing to work, and this is not even about me, right? Gratitude helps you to see things from an entirely different perspective, and things that used to aggravate you, you can laugh about them. They don't get you into that space anymore. Gratitude helps you to stop reacting and start responding. Gratitude is a more mature perspective on moving through life, navigating these ups and downs, knowing that the ups and downs are still going to come. They're there. But when you're operating from gratitude, it's almost like you have this beautiful shield around you, where stuff that used to be able to get in and push your buttons, those things don't happen. The things continue to happen, but their impact on you, they land differently when you're living from gratitude. They land way differently when you're living from gratitude.
All right, y'all. We are chatting, and the sun is leaving us, so we had to go make sure y'all could see our gorgeous delightfulness, and so we are back. All right, so you got these three practices, which is amazing. So the tool of surrender, the tool of forgiveness, and the tool of gratitude. And I think, and something that I knew you first for, which was the sisterhood, right? Your magazine. I think what is essential for anyone who is going to step into this kind of work, right? Okay, we're moving from, and this is, I think, something that we do a lot. We like to stay in the intellectual because it feels manageable, right? It feels like something that we can, it's in front of us. It's something that we can perceive with our conscious mind. And so then we feel like there's a sense of control. But when you delve into this kind of work, the surrender, the forgiveness, the gratitude, sometimes some things can come up, right, that require you to seek some help outside of yourself. So what are some ways that you would suggest for people to support themselves in continuing this work when it is more than you're used to doing?
Mm-hmm. I'm a huge proponent of therapy, and I think having the right therapist is critical. It's absolutely critical. I love therapists who bring some degree of spirituality to their work, because they, I think, are better equipped to help you to see the whole picture and to support this journey inward. Right. I think coaches are phenomenal. A really good coach can help you get out of your way. They can help you to see what your stumbling blocks are. They can help you to acquire some tools to navigate, these obstacles that we face, right? And I think it's also really, really important, that you recognize what's the word is slipping my mind right now. Chemicalization. That's it. Chemicalization. Because one of the things that happens is when we're on this spiritual journey, right? And, we're using our tools, and, we're expecting, these things to happen. We're expecting to manifest. We're expecting, things to unfold a certain way. But then, these other things start to come up, that don't feel so good. And we're wondering, well, I'm doing, I'm working at forgiveness thing. I'm meditating. I'm surrendering. I'm doing all of this work, paying attention to my thoughts, changing my thoughts. And it feels like I'm going backwards. It feels like I'm regressing. And what I've said to people is, actually, when that starts to happen, congratulations, because it's an indication that you are making progress, making significant progress. Because what happens is, and going back to the example that I gave with the compassionate retrospection, if we haven't cleaned up some stuff, right, it's still beneath the surface. It is still beneath the surface, and it can't stay there. It has to it has to bubble up. It has to bubble up. And so when you start doing this work and those things start to bubble up, the reason they're bubbling up is to be healed. They are bubbling up so that when you ultimately get to a more advanced part of your journey, they're no longer there to trip you up.
Mm-hmm. They're no longer there to trigger you.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. They bubble up to the surface so that they can be healed, so that they are no longer your blind spot. I mean, if you need to engage the services of a therapist to help you to navigate whatever those things are, but that they came to the surface is a really, really, really good thing. It's a really good thing. And seeking professional help, if you find yourself attempting to move beyond them and you can't, that's a sign of strength, major strength.
And I think that's the other thing as well. I think, again, intelligent women, we're used to being able, sisters doing it for themselves, that kind of thing, and it is the most freeing thing to be able, because I will tell you, I have a very good coach, and I can't wait to interview her. She has agreed to be interviewed. I cannot wait. She's probably going to be laughing the entire time. But the ability to speak with somebody and feel completely listened to, because I don't think we listen to ourselves enough, right? I think we're always listening for the thing to change, listening for the thing to grow, listening for the thing to learn, instead of just listening. And so even that is a conversation about, is it okay for you to just be listened to? Like, are you worthy enough to just have somebody hear you and not judge you, and not have to act, just, hey, can we just talk? So I really encourage anybody who's listening or watching us, don't be afraid. And the part where you are thinking, and this is something I want to speak to, thinking about worthiness. Don't be afraid to switch therapists if they're not working for you.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I've heard that, like, oh, well, and I'm like, like I just recently switched doctors. I was like, I don't feel like I can, like, talk to you. And that's crazy, because this is where I'm supposed to be healing. So, like, don't be afraid to do the search. The same way you search for the car that you were driving, the same way that you search for, just the right outfit. The right shoes. Same way you search for a hairstylist.
Absolutely.
Who's working on what's on top of your head?
Absolutely. You want to be as critical about who's working on what's inside your
Inside the head and inside your heart.
Even more so.
Golly.
Even more so.
Golly.
Yeah.
Golly. So,
Absolutely.
I cannot wait. I know that you have 2 books. Tell us the titles of those 2 books for me, please.
The first book is Worthy. Actually, I'm on the third. The first was Worthy.
Yes. Yes, doctor.
The second is Are You Worthy? Powerful Steps for a Resounding Yes. And the one that was just released, the first 2 were for men and women. The one that was just released is called Sis, You're Worth It. 7 Ideas for Manifesting Your Best Life. That's the one that's out now. It's available at the InstituteForWorthyLiving.com. The link to Amazon is on the website. If you want an autographed copy, you can also order on the website.
Yes.
I wanted to say something else to it. As it relates to having someone to listen to you, right? I think it's important. And you mentioned my magazine, The Sisterhood. I'm so obsessed with sisterhood. I think it's so important that we recognize that there are times when we need someone to provide a safe space, and sometimes it can be a girlfriend, to provide a safe space for us to share, and for them to be on the listening end. And then it's also important for us to play that role, to be that person for another sister who might need that supportive ear. And in one of my other books, The Sisterhood Exchange, I have a process called LIVE, L-I-V-E, which is a listening process that I encourage women to engage, because sometimes, if you're not a skilled communicator who understands that listening is a part of communicating, that some of the human stuff might get in the way. And so LIVE, the L is listen from your heart instead of your head. Because sometimes when we're listening, we're waiting for that opening for us to jump in and to say something, and sometimes, depending on where we're coming from, what we say, we might say something to redirect it back to us.
Yes.
So LIVE is listen from your heart instead of your head, and be willing to put all of your stuff on the back burner. If you got a sister sitting in front of you, and she's either venting about something that, has upset her, or if she's sharing with you a dream or a goal, you want to create that kind of sacred space where she feels safe to just let it all out. So LIVE, listen from your heart and not your head. The I is inspire her. Okay. If she's talking to you about a dream or a goal, she's talking about, something that she's done. All right. Look for the quality beneath the action. If she's done something courageous, if she's done something that's helped, that took her outside of her comfort zone, inspire her to keep going. Inspire her to continue doing that. Inspire her. Help her to get clear about where she's going, and ask her, how can I help you to get there, sis? Inspire her to keep going, right? The V is validate. It's one of the most powerful gifts that we can give to another woman, right? I think that self-validation is the most effective, most powerful, most important form of validation in existence. But as human beings, we all crave validation. And when one woman validates another woman, oh my God, That thing is so powerful. So again, you're listening to her and you're listening for the qualities behind her actions, and say something, girl. I am so proud of you. That's a courage. Oh my God, girl. I can see you as Dr. Michelle Hollinger.
Yes.
Say something to validate what you see as these wonderful qualities inside of her, right? And then the E is just send her some silent, beautiful, positive energy. That E is just something that you do, just from your place of support. You don't necessarily have to verbalize it, but just a prayer, a brief burst of just positive energy. Understanding that there's a boomerang effect in that whole process. Everything that you just gave to her, you kept every single bit of it for yourself. You kept every single bit of it for yourself because you can't give to somebody else without keeping it for yourself.
Yes.
You cannot. That live process. I'm gonna update it and republish the
Come
system of
on
exchange
now.
because that's fire.
Come on, of course that's fire. Come on,
Yes.
that's fire.
Yes.
Someone said, I don't know where I heard it, but they said, whatever you give away, you keep a copy.
Uh-huh.
Or it's either you give away the copy, or like you keep a copy or something like that. And I was like, yes, that's easy. It's easy to remember. So
absolutely. It's like that the what do you call it? The carbon copy thing that we used to use back in the day.
Yep. The blue paper,
copy.
like the top copy, you rip off and you keep the copy. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So I have been absolutely blessed. I know my audience has been completely blessed by having you come on back. You're gonna come back again at some point, because we got you. We got to have you. We got to have you. The Institute of Worthy Living is having just blessing people up in North America. For wherever it is that you're listening. I'm sure there are events that will be happening, and we can find out about those events where now?
On the website, the instituteforworthyliving.com. We have a huge retreat happening in the spring. Yes.
Oh, beautiful.
Huge retreat.
Beautiful.
Because we think we'll be safe to make it happen in the spring.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Thank you for having me. I love chopping it up with you. It's a pleasure, always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for listening to the Be Your Own Answer podcast. Share this episode with someone who needs it. Find us at beyourownAnswer.com.